views expressed on this program are those of the hosts, guests, and callers, and are not necessarily those of this station, its management, or other advertisers. You're listening to Transformation Talk Radio.
Moms, are you raising your kids to believe they can create the life of their dreams? Are you living your life that way as well? Living an awakened life means more than just talking about it. Join host Debbie Pokornik on Vibrant, Powerful Moms as she shares practical tips, stories, and interviews with enlightened guests, all geared at helping you create and live an extraordinary life. It's time to stand firmly in your power and model the life you want for your kids to inherit. And it all begins now on Transformation Talk Radio.
Welcome to the Vibrant Powerful Mom Show. I'm your host, Debbie Pokornik, and my mission is to help you create a life you love at work, at home, and at play. I am thrilled to welcome back Susan M. Hoskins as my guest this week. Susan is an interfaith minister with a doctorate in holistic theology. She is the author of the award-winning new book, The Way of the One, as well as several others, including the award-winning historical young adult novel called Molly's Rocker, which sounds very intriguing to me. I'm going to have to go and look it up for sure. Susan was awarded the U.S. President's Volunteer Service Award in 2007, which she actually uses as a teaching point in her book, The Way of the One. And she enjoys living in beautiful Colorado with her husband, Larry, where she loves playing a significant day-to-day role in the lives of her two young grandchildren. Now, if you caught my previous interview with Susan, then you know already that she has a lot of great information to share with us that all ties back into living the way of the one. And that is what we're going to continue talking about today. So without further ado, Susan, welcome back to the Vibrant Powerful Mom Show.
Oh, thank you, Debbie. It's great to be back.
So last time, we talked about our children and how we have all been raised with this way of the warrior kind of thinking, which means we symbolically hand our kids goggles, shields, and swords and tell them, get out there and kick butt.
Exactly.
So people can head back to that episode, which aired November 11th, 2019, if they want to find out why this is a really big problem and what they can do about it. Today, I'd like to dig deeper into some of the other really big pieces that the book gets into. Sound like a good plan?
Wonderful.
Okay, so why don't we start with having you share the moment or one of the moments in your life when you began to realize there was so much more to living a human experience than what you had been led to believe. Now, that could be in hindsight or whatever.
Oh, wow. Let me share the defining moment that you brought up, which was the Presidential Award, because this was a huge moment in my life. What happened was I was running a group called the Medical Reserve Corps of Kansas City, which was a group of health professionals and non-professionals who came together to train in the event of a disaster. So President George W. Bush called us into service after 9/11. Okay. So I'll speed through this story, but I'm driving down the highway from Weston, Missouri to Parkville thinking about the awards dinner I was going to do for volunteers the following week. And where we handed out certificates, beautiful embossed certificates for everything from attending a meeting to service. And I got a little bratty, if you want to know the truth, Debbie. And I thought, God, why doesn't anybody think to honor me? I've been involved in this forever. And I realized how bratty I was being. So in a funny way, I declared what I call a heart-centered intention. And I said, okay, Spirit, here's the deal. I'd like to be honored for my service with the Medical Reserve Corps, and a nice embossed seal would be great. Okay? So I said that. I laughed at my brattiness and got about my business. A few days later, I came home from work and I had 3 voicemails. And one was my sister, one was a friend, and the third one was from the White House. I went, what? Well, I checked out the area code. I have relatives in Washington, so I knew it was a legit area code, and I was to call the Freedom Corps at the White House immediately. Well, I called, and the woman said, I've been nominated for this presidential award, and if I passed my interview and background check, President Bush would hand me the award the following Thursday when he came to Kansas City. I went, okay. So lo and behold, I got notified that I had passed, and I was to show up at the downtown Kansas City airport to meet President Bush. And there you go. So I went, and sure enough, my Secret Service agent, when Air Force One landed, walked me out on the tarmac and put me under Air Force One. And President Bush exited and waved at me like he knew me and greeted the dignitaries and came back to present me this award. And while I was waiting for him to come back, I looked up and realized I was standing under the presidential seal. And I went, oh my God, Spirit, you got a great sense of humor. I just meant a nice certificate, you know?
But you gave me so much more.
Oh my gosh. And that was life-changing for me, because I couldn't have scripted that in a million years with goals and affirmations. And it was just like, oh, wow, Spirit is wonderful. And we live in a world that's just full of magic when we open our hearts to it.
It's so much more than what we really have been led to believe that it is.
Oh, absolutely. And we are so guided and protected and loved in every moment.
Yes. I love that. And that story is in the book. So if people want to hear more about it, they can certainly take a peek at the book. There's a lot of really great stories in there. So, you will enjoy going through it. So let's now dive in with both feet or head first or whatever you want to say, because I want to talk about that illusion of God versus us. That comes up in the book, and it's such an important thing. Why do we see ourselves as a separate entity from God, and why is this causing so much upheaval for us?
Oh, I love that question, because I think it's at the heart of all the hate and divisiveness that we experience in our world today. And so I can think back to how I was raised as a little Catholic child, and I bet our listeners can think back that I was taught, and I bet many others listening were taught as well, that God was this bearded old guy up in the sky there to judge our every deed, but a loving Father, but don't misbehave or you might go to hell for eternity. And I was taught that you had to beg on bended knee for what you wanted from this very distant mythical figure in the heavens, and that, we were supposed to come on bended knee because we were pitiful sinners. And at the same time, I was also taught that I grew up in the best religion there could be, and therefore, God would like me best because, I'm not like these other people. I'm me versus them, and God versus us. And where that leads us is with fighting one another, often in the name of religion and God, so that we somehow think this illusion we have of God in our mind is going to like us best and take us to heaven, and not like these other people. And I just think that has been such a prevailing notion in our culture and so many cultures around the world, that it gives people reason to see each other as separate entities, all vying for favor with this separate, judgmental God.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's not even touching on the part of where people they pray and they feel like they're good people and they've done everything right, and then God turns their back on them.
Oh, exactly. And even, I'm asked, because I'm a minister, to pray for people. And I don't know what their souls have chosen. And I don't believe in, if we just pray hard enough, maybe God is going to cure this little boy who has cancer. And that just breaks my heart, because again, we don't know what the soul has chosen. And again, it's like, if we pray hard enough and if we're of the right faith, then somehow we're going to get what we want in life. And if we don't, then it's because we've done something wrong. We haven't prayed hard enough.
Absolutely. So what is God?
Well, I believe God is life. God is one. God is all of this. I believe that we are individual expressions of our Creator. God. So therefore, we're all part of the same life. Everything is part of the same life, which I think is all part of the Creator and its creation. So I don't see a separation. I don't see a separate, distinct being separate from us. I see it as all one, all part of us. That's what I mean by the way of the one.
Right. And I am right there with you again, sister.
Good. All right, sister.
We are cells side by side.
Oh, we are.
So I do want to read a little piece from your book about this, because I just think it'll maybe give people something a little more to hold on to. So it says, we are not human beings living our lives apart from the creative force that begot us. Rather, we are spiritual beings originating from spirit, having a temporary human experience. We are God, individualized as magnificent, unique, and brilliant souls. Your true essence is a glorious, self-aware, omnipotent, creative, and joyful being of love, wisdom, and powerful energy. Now, how is that for making you feel like a cup totally full? Never
Oh, I
mind
love
half
it.
full or anything, right? I mean,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah, and I believe that as individual creations of the Creator, living our individual human experience, we are such a part of this brilliant divine mosaic, and it wouldn't be complete without each one of us living our unique expression of the divine. I love
right.
that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's such an important thing for people to hear, because there's so many people too that have chosen, they want nothing to do with God because they see God as organized religion.
Yes,
And,
exactly.
and that, I mean, that was certainly part of my story where I had to walk away and say, you know what, I cannot be that person that feels they can go to church on Sunday and be a terrible person the rest of the week, and that
Right,
all is forgiven, and that I'm living a good life. That just doesn't fit,
right.
with what I believe. So there may be people listening who feel the resonance of this message, but they find it still bumping right into what they've been taught from young, right?
Sure.
From church, from school, from society. So what would you say to them about honoring their experience while opening to new information?
Oh, I love it because, again, as I've said, I believe we've incarnated in every religion and every race in all of it. So if you have chosen this lifetime to be part of a particular religion and it's serving you well, I think that's beautiful. If it isn't, then I think perhaps by removing goggles and beginning to view it in a different way, to see the oneness, it may help. And I think of it this way. Here was a turning point for me. I can remember being this little kid in Catholic school, and we were supposed to save up our pennies to send missionaries to baptize pagan babies so they wouldn't go to hell for not being Catholic. Okay. And I know
Right.
the Catholic Church has changed a great deal since I grew up, but I can remember as a little kid thinking, well, why would this so-called God create some of its creation to love, but hate the rest simply because they weren't born into the right religion or country? That didn't make any sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say to a listener, if a particular religion is serving you well and it's serving this belief in oneness and love and heart versus illusions of the mind, then it's serving you well. If you're bumping up against a notion of God picking favorites or separation, us versus them, then I invite you to think about the question I had to wrestle with as a child, which is, why would this particular picture of God create some people to love and others to hate? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Mm-hmm. That was always my thing. I thought, why would
Right.
God be up there just waiting to punish me?
Yeah,
Like, you know, I don't
exactly.
get it.
Me either. And you know what? I'm a loving mother and grandmother, and I can't imagine not loving one of my grandchildren or wanting to see them suffer in any way. I
Mhm.
mean, that just doesn't fit. So if we're blessed with this ability to love one another, then I have to believe that we were created by a creator of love.
Absolutely. And when you see yourself as part of the one, you realize that that's kind of like hating your big toe.
Oh, it is.
Like why would you hate a piece of yourself? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I love that.
Oh, it's so big. And there's a piece in your book, again, another statement that I think I want to paint on my wall, that our suffering is caused by our resistance to what is and our wish that things were different.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I'd love to talk about this. So, again, if you think about how we dwell in our mind, I call this the theater of the mind in the land of little me, where I'm the star performer and I see everything in relationship to me. And what I mean by that is, oh my gosh, how much time do we spend in our mind ruminating about how differently things would have been if only I'd been in this relationship, if
Yeah.
only I would have gone to school to be in this profession, if only, if only, if only. And I don't know about you, but I can spend hours in my mind scripting the scenes of what my life might have been like, if only for that. And it makes me miserable.
Hmm. Absolutely.
But when I come to a place where I realize I've chosen my life experience and it's meant to be, I mean, it's filled with pain because that's what life is about, but it's also filled with great joy and love. When I can bring myself back to the present moment and be grateful for exactly as my life is in this moment, even though, sure, there are still things I'd like to do and achieve and be, then I find peace and happiness. When I dwell in that place that doesn't even exist in my mind, called the past or illusions of the past, I'm
Mhm.
miserable.
Absolutely. Well, because you're so powerless. You can,
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
you actually address this in the book very, very well, that your power is in this moment. This is where you can make things happen right now, not the
Yeah, because you
past,
know
not the
what?
future.
That's right, because that's all there really is. There
Mhm.
is no such thing as the past. I invite everybody to ask yourself, can you recall every single thing that happened or you did on a particular date 5 years ago? How about 10? How about 8? I mean, it's not there. We have memory traces of certain things that have happened that we carry with us, but the past doesn't exist anymore, and neither does the future. All that exists is right now.
Mhm. Mhm. Absolutely. And it's interesting you say that because, of course, right away my mind thinks, well, there's people that have photographic memory and can remember pieces like that. But what or the way that it strikes me right now is, as I was looking through my journals, I was looking for stuff. My birthday was just at the beginning of October, and so I tend to do a lot of reflecting around my birthday, like lots of people do. And so I
Yes.
started looking at my journal, and I thought, how can it be that 5 years ago I was saying the same kind of things? I mean, it's amazing to me that what I wrote then is still so resonant with who I am now.
Well,
And
sure.
it just made me really feel that connection to the now.
Oh, absolutely. And we're soul sisters, girlfriend, because my birthday was yesterday.
Oh,
Yesterday in
happy
October.
birthday.
Thank
Yes.
you, thank you. Mine was in October as well, which seems like yesterday. Anyway,
Yeah. I
having
hear
said
you.
all that, exactly.
All right.
Having said all that, the importance of the now moment is the fact that yes, we do bring what we've learned and what we need to heal into this moment. So that is very real. But
Oh,
the
for sure.
events of the past, what happened, even if you have a photographic memory, don't exist anymore. It's just the memory traces that we carry with us.
Right. And we can't do anything about it because it was
Right?
back then like that. If it was a tap bursting, that water is already flowed. It's gone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Nice. So in line with that kind of thinking though, can we talk about competition?
Oh, I'd love
Because,
to.
like there is a place for competition. There's that little bit of good natured, fun competition really can make life interesting.
Sure.
But overall, this tool really creates a sort of lack thinking. And I mean, when you're talking about living the way of the one, it doesn't make sense because you're competing against others who are really you.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
yeah, how can we help unpack that for people?
Well, for me, I really hear what you're saying. Sure, friendly natured competition is fun. But when I'm in competition with somebody who, like you say, is really me, I'm always comparing myself to that person. And so
Yes.
there may be a day that I do better. There may be a day I do less, but it's always beating me up. And if you think about it, think about our sports teams for a minute. You can be on the best sports team, and play your very best, and you can get to
Hmm.
whether it's the World Series or whatever it is, or for little flag football, whatever it is. And you're one of the two best teams. And if your team happens to lose, you brand yourself a loser.
Yes.
And that's what bothers me about competition. And I'll share a personal story that's really bothered me in recent weeks. So my little grandson, who's 8, was playing at recess, playing a little, catch football. And they were talking about their favorite football teams. So Patrick says, "Oh, mine are the Chiefs and the Broncos." And a little boy named Ian says, "Mine are the Raiders." And Patrick says, "Oh my gosh, why do you like the Raiders?" And the kid got so mad because that's his team
Right.
that he threw the football in such a way, so fast and furious and so close, that it actually broke Patrick's finger and he had to have surgery.
Oh my gosh.
And at that point, I thought, no, 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 these are 8-year-old kids, and we're teaching this whole competition battle, me
Mm.
versus you. And I think that's where our competition maybe has gone too far.
Absolutely. I mean, I used to work in the school system, and when it came to working with kids, one of our first question was, do they play hockey? Because if they both play hockey, and you're talking Canada here,
Oh, yeah,
right?
I love it.
Then they probably have a rivalry that has come off the
Oh,
off
yeah.
the rink and here onto our playground. And that often was the case, but that's not even talking about how damaging that sort of competitive masculine energy has been to us as a culture that has pushed aside the feminine energy. And
Oh, so true. And you know
ah,
what? Again, I go back to, on a given day, if you're in that mindset of competition, you may feel good about yourself, but the next day you're going to equally feel bad or worse about yourself if you don't see yourself as equal to or better than another. And that's what I feel is so damaging.
absolutely. So every time we compare ourselves to something or
Yes.
someone else, we come out the loser, because even if you think you're better, then you have to keep being better.
Yeah, and there's no way. I mean, give me a
Exactly.
break.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
here's the other thing, nothing is ever good enough.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
nothing is ever good enough.
No, and people are always going to break records, right? I mean, that's what
Yes,
the Guinness Book is all about, broken records.
sure.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so this topic of competition really reminds me of when you and I were talking and setting up this show. And you had mentioned to me about a board that you were dealing with, and
Right.
they were trying to resolve some issues. And I love the question that you asked them. Do you want me to share
Lovely.
that? Or you know
I
your
would love to.
question, so
Yes, I would love to. So we live in a townhome condominium development, and there's an HOA board, and the two board members made an arbitrary pet decision about restricting dogs here. And we in Colorado and everywhere else love our doggies. So,
absolutely.
don't tell us we can only have one and they can only weigh 30 pounds. So there was a whole movement that began to erupt to remove these two board members. And long story short, it came down to a meeting in early October to remove these two individuals, even though the elections were going to be in December anyway. And I kept saying, why don't we wait and do this right? Well, the meeting took place and the two sides were very contentious. And I just stood up and I said, we're going to take a vote shortly. And, who knows how it's going to turn out? Somebody's going to feel like a winner. Somebody's going to feel like a loser. I just want to know, how do we all heal after this? Because we're
Mhm.
still a community and nobody is going to come out of this. They may feel like they won in the moment, but ultimately they didn't. And that was the question that I asked. And that's what happened. The two board
Yes.
members received a majority to be voted off. However, it wasn't a big enough percentage, so therefore they remained. And at the end of the meeting, nobody was happy. So I still maintain, with any fight or battle that we have, I just want to know, how are we going to heal from it? How can we come to a bridge where it's not just somebody on one side of the bridge and someone on the other only looking at their narrow viewpoints? How can we come to the middle of the bridge and be able to see the panoramic view and come up with the best decisions?
Absolutely. That makes me think of parents having power
Yes.
struggles with their
Right.
kids, and how in the moment it really feels like this little bugger shouldn't be,
Exactly.
challenging me on this. I've got to put my foot down, and I've got to show him
Right.
who's boss. And that whole thinking actually creates a much bigger problem. So I'm always telling parents to think of, all right, so now I messed up. I grounded him. I put him in his room. I spanked him, whatever it is that I ended up doing. How do I now take that and help our relationship to heal? So very much like, what you said in that moment. And yeah, I just think that's so critical for us to be thinking that way. First of all, try not to draw your sword if you can help
Right.
it.
Right.
And if you do, you really have to give some thought to, how do I help heal the damage that I've just caused?
Right. And so what's helped me again is this bridge analogy, because I remember having a heated discussion with my husband about something, because gosh darn, Debbie, he wouldn't see my point.
I
And
know.
my point has to be the right one. And all of a sudden I went pazang. Of course he can't see my point. He's standing on his side of the bridge. I'm standing on mine. How do we meet in the middle? So yes, even with kids, I think we can do that, where we go, okay, yeah, let me come
Nice.
to the middle. And, it's okay. We're not going to be perfect in this. We are going to engage in battles, even if we're practicing the way of the one. But how can we have enough communication, even with our little ones, to say, okay, how can we see this from each other's viewpoints so we can move forward together?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we didn't even get to talk about perspectives. Okay, so this is a fantastic book. Susan is a wonderful soul. I hope you have picked up on that. So you can find out more about Susan by going to her website, thewayoftheone.org. If you add a /VPM/giveaway, you can pick up the 3 wonderful gifts that she created for the previous interview. You can also find her on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram by looking for Way of the One. And you can pick up her book as well. I strongly recommend that you do, because it's just such a wonderful resource. Susan, we have more than run out of time for our moment today. I'm going to have to talk to you about having you come back yet again, I think.
I love it.
But wonderful. I am so grateful that it was finally time for our paths to cross. And thank you for all that you're doing to help us all awaken and return to the way of the one, because I think that is just such an important thing that you're doing.
Oh, thank you, Debbie.
Oh, you are so welcome. And a big thank you to you, our listeners, with much respect for you and the journey you are on. This is Debbie Pokornik and her repeat guest, Susan Hoskins, wishing you a vibrant and powerful day.
You've been listening to Vibrant, Powerful Moms with host Debbie Pokornik. If you've enjoyed this show, please share it with others to help spread the love. To find out more about Debbie, pick up free offers from the show, and listen to previous episodes, visit vibrantpowerfulmoms.com.